I'm your host, Jade.
And I'm your host, Emma.
And this is
Lashing Out and Nailing Life. So, little update. We did skip an episode because we had a lot going on. If you're watching, you can tell that the background has changed. We are filming in my new apartment. Clapping sounds. So we'll be here for a little bit or until the foreseeable future. It's been nice to not have to drag everything and to set it up way ahead of time so we can fit this in a little bit better because I don't have to worry about people like setting up as we're here versus I can set up beforehand. So
and we're dragging it to and from my studio, and it's only 5 minutes from my place, so it'll be a lot easier just for us to fit it into our schedules.
Yep.
But we also skipped because I've been adjusting to my new work-life balance as I'm now working at Sephora as well as running my business, because we used to film on Saturdays and now that's out of the question for me. So we'll be filming more on our days off,
which will be good. I think it'll be good. We have a little more time to squeeze it in, and hopefully we'll be able to keep on schedule.
Yeah, I think consistency should be a lot easier now.
Yeah. So today's episode is things we thought were the end of the world.
But it turned out they weren't. Because we're obviously sat here.
Yeah, we're still here.
Emma's in her new apartment, so clearly everything's worked out for her.
Although, to start things off, I will say moving out was a little stressful, and I thought that it was not going to work out. But it did, and it's good. And if we hear any noises in the background, it is no longer pets. It is my boyfriend. So he is being a trooper with this. Do we want to start off with our friendship one?
Yeah, we have one in common, and I feel like it's something a lot of girls in their 20s / in high school go through, which is friendship breakups.
Yeah.
So I can go first. My first, and I guess I'm lucky that it didn't happen until last July, August, but my first massive friendship breakup was last July, August, and it really happened because I mixed friends together that didn't initially know each other, and then they all kind of met each other. And it was when I was watching them hang out with each other, I realized that they all had very similar, not necessarily toxic traits, but traits that I didn't really feel like I aligned with. And a screaming red flag is if somebody is talking really poorly about somebody to you over and over again, they're probably talking really poorly about you to their other friends. And that's something that every single person I have fallen out with has had in common, is they were all really bad at talking poorly about their other friends to me, and not just like complaining here and there about little things that they do, but like essentially bashing on them as a whole as a person. And what's crazy is all these people are still friends with those people, and it's just one of those things that I would watch out for. But at the time it felt like the end of the world, because these were the girls that would always go out with me and like make sure I went out after my life-changing event, and they knew everything about me. They knew everything I'd been through. They went to the same places as me. We danced together. We did everything together. And when you lose that, it very much feels like your world is kind of flipped upside down yet again. But it's been one of those biggest eye-opening experiences where I've grown closer to people who are in the same industry as me, who are also entrepreneurs, and people that just have a lot more in common with me overall and understand me more as a person than they ever could, because being an entrepreneur automatically makes your life very different from a normal person's life when you're just working for an employer. So it's been a huge blessing in the end, and I'm grateful it's pulled me closer to people like Emma, who very much align more with my core values and who I am as a person.
Yep. Segueing into mine, which is my biggest friend breakup was in high school, and it was a pretty big group of people who all knew each other, which we've talked about before, like having smaller friend groups, and this is why. So it was a pretty decent sized friend group, again, like probably 15 people, and a few of them were foreign exchange students, which kind of adds to the story. And there was this girl who was kind of the mama of the group, and in the beginning that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, she definitely kept us on track. She made all of the plans. We didn't really have to think too much about it. But it started turning into her, I think, getting a little jealous in her own way, or in the way that I would witness it as jealousy. And she started kind of noticing that I think people just kind of gravitated towards me a little bit better in the friend group. And the final straw to that was, it was spring break, and I was the only one in my friend group also with a job, which was kind of weird looking back and being an adult, and like now my brother's been through high school and things, for me to be the only one in my friend group who had a job, but I did. And I had asked them like, hey, are we doing anything for spring break? Because I'll take off work, we can all go do something. And she was like, no, we're not doing anything, we'll just be around, like whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Spring break comes and goes, and I find out that she took the main people of the 15, besides the few who had other plans for spring break, to the beach. And she tried to say that it was really last minute and she couldn't invite me, and she told me that they only invited the couples, which would have made sense, except they invited the one single guy also, who had a crush on one of the girls who was also in a relationship with one of the other guys. It was just so high school drama messy, which was crazy because a lot of the like guys in the group, like especially the foreign exchange students, were a little bit older because we were at a community college. So I don't know, that felt kind of weird. And when I tried to tell her why it made me upset, like, and this is why I still do this to this day, is I will invite people even if I know they can't come to things, because I would them rather be like, oh, I can't come, that sucks, than to not invite them and them feel like I purposefully left them out because I assumed that they couldn't come. So I typically will always invite people to things even if I know that the answer is going to be no, because that way it's like peace of mind on both sides. They don't feel left out because I didn't invite them, and I don't feel weird like I purposefully didn't invite them. Anyways, when I was talking to her about it, she kept saying like it was super last minute. And I was like, that would have even been fine, except they did not tell me about it for weeks. And I found out through like a weird memory post that was posted that I don't even think she thought of being something like that, because they didn't tell anyone they didn't tell me when they came back. Everybody else knew. And then after that happened, she started telling some of the people in the group that I was like making up lies to people and like things that were not true and not happening. And so, yeah, we ended up not being friends, and it felt like the end of the world, because it was leading into my senior year. So I just felt like, your senior year is supposed to be your big, bad, fun year. And I wasn't really going to have any of that because I didn't have any friends. And the only friend I had was another guy who got pushed out because of stupid things that weren't true. So yeah, friends, but again, we've learned from this, and you learn like the little red flags, and you learn like how to kind of catch the sneaky behavior in friend groups or with people who are talking behind your back and things like that. Yeah. So it definitely helped me grow.
I think I'm definitely still getting used to applying it, but
well, and sometimes it's hard because it's just like, even when you're dating someone new, you don't really know until you know.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know until you catch something.
Yeah. I'm also very guilty of that. I choose to see good in everybody, and I choose to make excuses for people. Yeah. And it's just, there's a limit to it. I mean, strike one, sure, you can probably find a reasoning, but like once it starts pushing on it, you need to be careful.
Well, and I think there's a difference too between friends being worried about choices you're making, or maybe personally not agreeing with those choices, and them just like talking smack.
Yeah.
Like 100%. just because. Or I feel like I've gotten really good because of that high school friendship at telling when things are coming from like a jealousy tone versus like a care tone. Yeah, no. But I still have PTSD from that. And so I've even told some girlfriends before where I'm like, I'm saying this because I'm worried, not because I hate them. Yeah. That kind of segues into my next point, which was my first real breakup, which was also in high school. I think I was 16. Without getting into too much detail because it can be kind of a triggering topic, it was good until it wasn't good. So it was fine up until things started to get more serious, and I got really freaked out. I was in denial for a really long time. I didn't tell anyone about it. And then when I told two of my friends and broke up with the guy, I think that they made it feel worse in the aspect of like, oh, well, you can't go anywhere alone now. And we're going to take you to all these things and do all this stuff, because they were scared that he was stalking me, which again, looking back and being a high school girl full of drama, I was like, you're right, he's stalking me. But in reality, I think it was a teenage boy like learning from his behavior also. And the stalking that he was doing was finding me after my classes to, is it profusely or profoundly apologize to me? Yeah. Not that that's an excuse, because it was still a little traumatizing. But at the time, I felt like it was the end of the world, because I did not know if I was ever going to find anyone respectful, because he had been so nice, and then things got bad. And then I feel like with most breakups, any breakups where you feel like they're serious and they end, you're like, I'm never going to find anyone again. I'm never going to recover from this. I'm never going to trust anyone. And then to get to a point, especially where I am now with my current boyfriend, and like realizing what love is and all that kind of stuff, it's definitely like, but I learned from all those other relationships what the red flags were. And even though it all felt like the end of the world, except for like 2 or 3 who I really just didn't like anymore, it helped me grow.
I don't know. I didn't include anything from high school, mainly because I don't remember high school that clearly. I had one boyfriend, like one serious boyfriend in high school. I was unfortunately the girl in high school who was always talking to some guy here, there, or in the middle. This is called working on your value, girls. Talking to a boy does not define your value. Anyways, my first like end of the world relationship moment was October of 2020. Back in August of 2018, so just shortly after I graduated high school, I downloaded Tinder for the first time. That was the first dating app I ever used, and I seriously think it was the first day I was even on it. So I was on Tinder for all of a day. I came across this guy that I knew in high school. I did performance for theater. He did tech for theater. I swiped right on him as a joke because I was like, wouldn't it be funny if he swiped right on me too? We matched. A couple days later, I think we went to Denver Zoo for our first date, and we just hit it off. We kept seeing each other. At the end of that December, I moved to Vancouver, British Columbia to go to film school, and he and I did long distance for a year. Halfway through that year, in June, he came out with my family to visit me. We got engaged. But when I say engaged, I got a ring. There was never any wedding planning that ever happened over the following year and a half. So engaged to me is a very loose term. I more just got a ring from it. But he was a great boyfriend while I was, or fiance, whatever you want to call it, while I was in Canada. He would call me whenever I was on the bus. He would FaceTime me every night. We would have little dates. It went really well. And while most people's relationships fall apart during long distance, ours fell apart when we started seeing each other again. Because when I moved back, it was COVID time. So I still didn't see him much until like June of 2020. And then we hung out until October. And there were little things that happened here and there where now looking back, they were probably red flags. He once got a call while we were at the mall with a couple of our friends, and he just told them that he was just at the mall with some friends, no mention of me, wandered off to take the rest of the call, and then proceeded to come back and tell me that he had to go because his family had a flat tire, which to this day, if any guy ever did this to me ever again, it would be the end, because he was my ride and I knew his family, so why was I not going with him? And then I found some other girl's ID in his car. He had a BS excuse, which at the time I took for face value. And then one time I got in his car and it smelled like cigarette smoke. And he claimed that he was not smoking and that it wasn't a friend, which now leads me to know that it could only be one other person.
Again, weird that he wouldn't have used the excuse of, no, it was that friend.
I gave him an out and he didn't take it.
Men
yeah.
suck.
Upon looking back on it, he was probably seeing somebody else, and that is why on Halloween, despite the fact that we had just chosen our costumes together the day before, he texted me 30 minutes before he was supposed to pick me up to tell me, hey, I'm gonna go to the party without you tonight. I know that's really going to upset you. I've had something on my chest for a while, but I'm not gonna have my phone tonight, so don't bother texting me. Pretty much the gist of the text. Didn't text him back. Didn't care to. I think I texted him for a week. He never texted me back. So I went to his house. He came out to talk to me. Told me he wanted a 4-month break, which is the most bizarre timeline ever to give anybody.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like October, because it's like...
So it cunningly covered Thanksgiving, Christmas, his birthday, Valentine's Day. It covered every essential holiday. At that time, though, I had been living in Vancouver straight out of high school, so I'd kind of lost all my high school friends, and then I'd only been back for 10 months, and most of that was COVID and me being at beauty school, so I still hadn't really built up any friendships. He was still, like, my closest friend, more so than anything else. Looking back on it, I didn't love him, which is a totally different conversation, but he was definitely my closest friend at the time. So I politely said, hey, I get it, but can we just stay in contact for a little bit, because I still don't have a solid friend group. I don't really have anybody to talk to about this. And he agreed to that. And then 2 days later, I woke up and he had blocked me on everything. And that was the last I ever heard from him. And at that time, it felt like the end of the world, because I had just gotten my first real adult job at a spa, which I had to call out sick, because when you go through your first heartbreak, you feel sick. You can't eat, you can't sleep. It genuinely does feel like you're sick.
Again, a lot of breakups. It's like someone dying a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you lose this person that you were super close to. And I mean, especially when they block you on everything and there's literally no contact. And I was trying to learn lash extensions at the time, and that was part of the reason I think I really struggled in the beginning. And he was my first serious relationship, so it really felt like that end of the world moment where it's like, oh dang it, that was my person. And looking back on it now, I kept that job for a year and a half. I absolutely love lash extensions, and now I'm in the most loving, caring relationship ever, which is why I know I've never loved anybody in the past. So it's one of those things where your first heartbreak is going to probably be the worst.
Yeah.
Because it's the first.
Right.
But anybody who gets to stay with their first is very lucky.
Yeah. And I mean stay, beginning to end, not beginning divorce.
Yeah, no, it's
because
very uncommon.
a lot of times it always ends with divorce, even if it's 25 years later.
Yeah.
And speaking of love and learning love and stuff, it's all the little moments that show you how to get to a point where you know what love is. Your first love, typically you realize wasn't love.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is you realize it wasn't even.
Because I learned what love was during COVID. I was single. I actually broke up with my boyfriend at the time, before we went into lockdown, because you could tell we weren't feeling it anymore, and we were about to not see each other for who knows how long.
Fair.
So we broke up, and then I was working a job where they considered us essential workers, and I had 2 really good friends, Alyssa and Maddie. I hope they listen to this. And I told them this, but I don't know if they remember. It was during that time when I realized what love felt like, even on just a friendship level, because it had gotten to a point where we just accepted all of us at our faults. They had seen the worst because we're in COVID and we're having emotional breakdowns. But we also worked together, so we got to see so many different aspects of each other's lives that I was like, this is what love is. This full utter acceptance. And it's crazy. It's a great feeling when you feel that. But it took all of the little learnings to realize oh, everyone I had been with up to this point, I didn't love. I loved the idea of, but I didn't actually love them. And now being in the relationship I am in, where I can just tell, it's just so full and happy and great.
That's one of the things, as I look back on my past relationships, and it's I have one where I just very clearly can't even think how I ever thought it was love. And I think in the moment I loved being in a relationship. I didn't even love who I was with. I didn't even love the situation. I just
Again, it's the idea of like
yeah.
you're in a relationship because that's what you're supposed to be doing and that's what you want to do. You don't
Yeah.
want to be alone, but finding what the actual like full acceptance is.
It's one of those crazy things though, because like I would ask my older clients who are in healthy long-term relationships, I'm like, how do you know when it's your person, or what is love to you?
Mm-hmm.
And the common overarching question is, I mean, answer is you just know. And I think that's the most frustrating thing to hear when you're trying to figure it out. But then when you get there, that's the
It's
only
just a
way I can
different
think to
feeling. And
answer
I'm
it.
sure
Yeah.
I'm sure different people feel love in different ways. Like that's why it's like for me it's that like pure utter acceptance because I was always weird and I was always too much and I was always like it was always something, and there are things that I'll do where I'm like, oh, that's too much. I'm being too much. And my boyfriend's like, you're so weird. I love you. Like he's like, you are weird. It's true. But he's like, but I love it. I'm like, oh, good. And the same thing with him. Like there are things with him too, where it might be annoying or it might be whatever, but it's not anything that I don't like love about him, because
Yeah.
it is him. You can't just love people because of one little thing because it's a whole. It's as a whole.
I think that's the biggest red flag in a relationship is if you want to change them in any way, shape, or
Right.
form, then you're not in love with them.
Yep.
And I actually think that might be it, is it's like every person I've been with in the past, there's always been something, if not an abundance of things, that I would have liked to change about them. And like that's always been my biggest problem is I've liked projects in the past.
Me too. Me too.
And I finally hit a point where I am not with a project. I'm with somebody who nobody's perfect, but he's working on himself while I'm working on myself, and like we have that give and take balance, and there's not a single thing I'd change.
And there are things that like will change over time, but like you going into the relationship thinking you're going to change it is not how it's going to be. Like even just moving in together, there are things where it's like that we're both changing because we know we need to versus because Garrett is pushing me to change or I'm pushing him to change.
Yeah. No, like compromise is normal, and having to figure out that middle ground for a lot of things is very normal. But when you want to change the person for who they are or change something that is very much just them as a whole, it's just not realistic, especially if they have no desire to change it themselves.
My mom says, moms have so much wisdom. My mom has said like, if you have the same core values and like morals and that big stuff that really matters to you, then the little things will come and go, because there's so many like those big things, like if they're really into drinking and that's like their whole personality, that probably won't change.
Yeah.
Even if they get older and they realize they don't want to drink anymore, but you going into it and being like, well, I don't like to drink, so I'm going to make them not drink, is not going to work.
Yeah.
Or if you have different religious beliefs and it's a big part of your life, like that's going to be hard to work with. I've dated both people who are extremely atheist and extremely religious, and I kind of float more in the middle, more towards a different side of religion than like most people that I've met. And it just doesn't work. Like there's no, like if I dated people who were really like non-religious, atheist, or borderline, sometimes it would be hard to take them home to my family because they didn't understand why my family could be so like Christian, and so we go to church and things, that they like wouldn't put the effort in to dress nice or to just like be respectful. Versus the other side of being the really religious, then I would have issues because I am not really religious also. So having a boyfriend who like grew up Catholic but isn't anymore, that was one of our like core values. And I told him, I said, when we have kids, I would like to be able to take them to church because I learned a lot. Yeah. Just like societally, like how to dress nice and how to respect people and how to get over uncomfortable situations from going to church and being in a youth group. That I would want my kids to learn from a similar experience. And in the past, people who aren't religious or never grew up with religion or did and aren't anymore would be like, no, I'm never letting my kids do that. And for him to be like, yeah, you can do that. He's like, I might not go with you, but you can do that, and is it's all those things. We're getting off track. This isn't about love, even though it kind of is.
That's just one of the big things that it always does feel like the end of the world. When
Right.
it most definitely isn't. Like, you're going to find your person. And, like, everybody's timeline is totally different from that. So,
Yep. I mean, I did a lot of healing in COVID. I think that led it to where I knew what I wanted sooner than, like, some people who
yeah.
are, or even just, like, I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years. You just met your boyfriend,
Yeah.
like, or not just met, but, like, it's only been almost
I know,
a
we're
year.
coming up on 8 months, though. It doesn't feel like it's been 8 months. This year's gone by so fast.
This year's gone so by, but also feels so long, because I was telling my mom, I was like, oh yeah, Jade and Joe have been together for like a year now. And I was like, no, they haven't. I was like, it's not a year yet. But it also is like next month or coming up is September.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Let me see. I'm just going to do like a blanket statement kind of for my next one, because 2 or 3 of these fall under the same year. I feel like we all have that year or more than one year that you look back on and you're like, that's the year that I thought was the end of the world. And for me, that was 2023, when everything kind of just snowballed out of control, I guess. But by 2023, because of the relationship I was in at the time, I didn't really have any friends, because I'd been kind of locked up. And if that happens to you, that is a red flag. So I kind of started the year with no support system except for my family, because nobody could pull me away from my family. Like, that would definitely be my biggest red flag, is if anybody tried to separate me from my family unit. But in February, I had the world's worst Valentine's Day, which I won't go into details of. And then said relationship in March, I found him OD'd, and he did pass. And then come July, my mom had to be rushed to the ER. My dad and my brother were in England. The rest of my family lives in England, so it's just me and my mom in Colorado. And I had originally thought, like, July 1st, it's the second half of the year. This is going to be so much better than the first half of the year. And then 4 hours later, I'm at work. My mom texts me, and she's like, when you get home from work, I need to go to the ER.
Your mom is so nonchalant. She's like, I don't want to bother you, but I need to go to the hospital.
I'm like, if you need to go to the emergency room,
Yeah.
it's probably an emergency. And I knew the client that was on my table at the time, and we were in the middle of a facial, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to remove this mask now. You don't need to pay. You just need to leave. I need to go get my mom. She's still a client now, and I love her. But I drove home. I probably hit like over 100 driving my mom to the hospital. I get her in there, and they're like, yeah, if you had been 30 minutes later, she could have passed, because all of her organ tissue was dying.
That's wild.
Yeah. So rushed my mom there. She had to go in for surgery due to what had happened in March. I had severe PTSD with hospitals, with the smells and the beeping and everything. So I'm hyperventilating. The nurse asked me what had happened. I told her, and she was like, that's this March? And I'm like, oh yeah, like 4 months ago. And she was like, you need someone here with you. And I'm like, my family's in England. And she's like, yeah, you have contacts in your phone, call through them. I was like, I don't think you understand. I have no one. Luckily, my mom's friend came through, and she helped me. And I think I left and I went home for a little bit while my mom was having surgery, because I didn't want to sit in the hospital. Like, I don't like hospitals. I still don't like hospitals. They're just not where I want to be, especially after the second thing happening in 1 year. But it's just one of those things where everything was happening, and even March was bad enough to the point where luckily come July I was already in therapy due to what happened in March. But I had this day where luckily I am close enough with my parents that I woke up and I went and talked to them, and I was like, hey, I feel like I'm going to do something bad to myself. Help. Just as easy as that. I have a dad who has lots of connections, so fortunately within a couple days I was able to get in with somebody who lived in my neighborhood, and she was able to do some PTSD stuff with me, which I think honestly is part of the reason I don't have as much PTSD around what happened to me. And then from her, I was able to find a therapist that I'm still going to now, but I'm under maintenance. So I only go once a month, which is great. But through all of that, I wouldn't be where I am today, despite the fact that through everything I went through that year, I thought I was going to have to close my business. I powered through. I still have clients now that I had then. They've been amazing and I love them and they've seen me through everything. I have friends that, yes, I wasn't as close to then, but they still have stuck with me through everything and they're still by my side and I'm closer to them now. And like those are the best friends I can ask for because they genuinely have seen me at my rock bottom and I don't ever think I'll be back there, so I know they're stuck with me for life.
Yeah.
That's one of the like best things about your like end of the world moments is that's when you find your people that are there for you and that's when you find your purpose, I feel like, and that's one of the reasons like no matter what I'm going to stick it through with my business because I think anybody else in my position probably would have given up, but I didn't.
Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I do think we all probably have the years where it just feels like everything is just one after the other. I mean, even with my friend breakup thing, the following year, I was dating a guy who we had made all these plans. We knew I was going to be moving. He lived in Florida, but he was in school in North Carolina. And I had said like, hey, if you're going to like stay in North Carolina for school or for work or whatever, like I'll stay. And then about a month before I had to make my decision, he broke up with me. And I was like, is in the world. And I will remember I said like the most cringiest thing though. And it's like, you know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you remember something you did in first grade. This is that moment where he was breaking up with me. I'm crying. My makeup is running because we were supposed to go on a date. And he still let me come over. And my makeup is running. And he's like, yeah, I just don't think this is going to work anymore. I said, well, good, because I'm moving to Colorado and I'm never coming back.
I mean, hey, you told the truth.
You know, true. We learn from our experiences. Okay, so another thing that I thought was going to be the end of the world was feeling behind when my friends started college and I didn't have a job. I had just moved here. I wasn't in school. I didn't have any money. I felt like they were all like moving out and doing things and going into dorms, and I wasn't doing any of that. And I just felt like so desperate and awful that I was applying for super sketchy jobs. And I love to clean, which is wild, but I do like to clean. And so I applied for this cleaning position for this really old man. And before I met them, they were like, hey, we just want to make sure that we have the ability to pay you. So give us all your banking information. And they stole $2,000 out of my bank account, because that's what was in my checking. So they didn't get anything out of my other ones. And I immediately closed my account and called the bank. But because I had given them all my information, I got investigated for fraud. And then the person who had posted the ad started threatening to kill my family. We had to get the police involved, and they tracked them to not even being in the United States.
Yeah, that's how it goes most of the time, yeah.
And of course, it was super scary. Thought it was the end of the world. I could not... Like, even when my mom brings it up to people sometimes, because she'll be like, oh my God, I'm involved in an internet scam. It gives me like PTSD because I don't think she realized like they were texting me constantly once I closed and changed my banking information, because I think they were probably going to try to clean it all out. That it was terrifying, and I wasn't even going to tell them that my money had gotten stolen until they started to threaten me and like be like, I'm gonna find your family and take you all out and like all this kind of stuff.
That's wild.
And so to this day, when she brings it up casually in conversations, I'm like, please don't talk about it, because I would have bad dreams. Like it was traumatic. So that was one. I'm fine.
That's crazy.
I know. I was like, I left that out of my initial notes. What's the other?
I don't have anything similar to that.
Right? I'm like, do you have a bank scam? No. Because that was me being like, I think I was blinded by feeling so left behind that it's not like I knew, like, not like I didn't know you're not supposed to like give your password and things to people.
So I guess I kind of have something with the like feeling behind. I think it's something we all struggle with when we're business owners, is comparing ourselves to where other people are in their business, like whether they're ahead of us or just in general comparing success, which I fall guilty to a lot. I feel like I don't do it very publicly at all. It's very much in my head and within myself. But one of the things that still kind of feels like the end of the world to me, but I'm pushing through it, is not being fully booked and my business not being able to support me, even though I've been doing it for 3 years. I have tons of people in my life constantly remind me that those 3 years have not been the easiest 3 years for anybody.
We already talked about 2023.
Yeah, these 3 years have not been the kindest or easiest 3 years for me to work through, especially with personal life things and just where the world is economically. Like, it's kind of a crisis for everybody right now. And I wasn't able to build my business as stable as I would like it before heading into that. And the other reason that my business is not as stable as it possibly could have been is because I got fired after a week of starting my business. So I kind of very much got thrown into just, this is my income and I'm just gonna have to make it work. But as much as like I struggle with the fact that like that's the end of the world, it's not. And it pushed me to get the job that I currently have at Sephora, which has opened a whole other world for me. And I've gotten to get back into makeup, which is how I started fresh out of high school. As I went to school and I studied makeup design. So it's honestly been a blessing more than a curse. And I think it's going to open up so many more possibilities for me, whether that's I pursue makeup more heavily, or I add makeup to my business, or I continue with Sephora and see where I can work myself up to there. It's just going to be this, I don't know. We'll see. It's still a journey, but I'm enjoying it.
I have one that kind of goes into the business side of things. It's two of them really, but when a bunch of clients move or cancel the same week, and then having emotional weeks on top of that where you feel like you aren't doing enough, and then I end up doing my end of month report at the end of the month and I'm like, okay, I'm still fine. And I think something we all have to remember too is looking back at to where we started versus where we are now. Because I always think about when we're kids and we get our first paycheck and it's like $100, $200 and we're like, we're so rich, we're making so much money. And then as you get older and the number gets bigger, but you feel like it's less. Yeah. But I always try to remember like, oh, don't you remember when $100 felt like so much money? And I feel like with businesses, it's kind of the same. Like if I look back at my first year where I wasn't paying myself, I was making just enough for rent, and I knew that that's what I had to do in order to grow my business, versus now where it's like, yes, I'm paying myself. Like sometimes I feel like I'm not making enough, but I am paying myself. Yeah. My business is booked. I have a wait list. So it's good to kind of look back on yourself versus trying to compare yourself to others, because we've looked at that so much, and there's so much that isn't shown in social media because people love to portray their best selves. And I still see businesses that I thought were doing fine close every day. Yeah. So it's all about what's really happening. And I've definitely had some times where I've cried because I think, oh, everyone's canceled or moved, or I've had to like switch things around and I'm not going to be able to make it. And adding on top of whatever else is emotional, like us moving out, like there was just a day where I just like cried because I was so overwhelmed. So my last one is when you have to fire your first client or get your first really difficult client. So I've talked about firing my first client before, but my first difficult client, which really felt like the end of the world, was this woman she was my very first official builder gel client at my business. Based on her telling me what her lifestyle was, I was like, I don't think square and keeping this little bit of extra length is going to be good. I was like, we could probably keep the extra length if we went round because it's going to eliminate the corners and stuff. And she was like, no, I've always done square. I'm doing square. And I was like, okay. And I was like, have you ever had issues with your square chipping? And she was like, no. That's important for later in the story, her saying that. So I do her nails. Everything's fine. I tell her like, hey, if you have any issues, let me know, because here's my policy on repairs. And this is also why I don't do repairs past like 48 hours because of this woman. It's always one client that makes you make a rule. And it was 2 days before her 3-week appointment. She canceled her appointment because that was within my time thing. And I reached out to her and was like, hey, I noticed you canceled. I just wanted to check, make sure everything's okay. And that you were happy with your nails, kind of as a review versus like a trying to get her back in. And she sent me a giant paragraph about how I was stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. Her nails are so messed up. They've been chipping and chipping and chipping. So I asked her like when they started chipping, and she was like 2 days ago. And I was like, okay, so 4 days before your 3-week appointment with a shape that I didn't even think was going to last that long, but okay. And she proceeds to tell me like I'm incompetent, like she doesn't, like she's not coming back, like blah, blah, blah. She's extremely disappointed in my service. And I cried because I was like, I did the wrong thing. I don't have anyone backing me in these situations anymore. My business is going to fail. And then now that I'm booked and busy and have a wait list, she joined my wait list.
That's so crazy.
And I thought, maybe she forgot who I was. I did not forget her. I will never forget her name, especially if you have like a unique-ish last name. I will never forget you. And I was like, you know what? I'll have her come in because worst case, she fills this gap that I have and she never comes back. So she comes in and she's like, oh, as I was driving here, I realized I had been here before. And she's like, and I just looked at her and said, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't remember you. And she was like, oh, it was a long time ago, because at this point I had my business for almost, like, I'm in my 3rd year. So almost 2 full years. And I do her nails and she suddenly is doing round now, which I think the way that she made it sound was that she went somewhere else and they were like, don't do square, and she listened to them. So we're doing round now and I do her nails, and each appointment she's saying stuff like, yeah, I don't know why I stopped seeing you. Your work is so good. Oh, let me tell you all about my daughter and what you guys have in common, because it turned out that we worked at the same salon. Like, she started after I had left.
Oh, crazy.
And she was having issues with him too, and like all of these things. And so I thought everything was fine. Her 3rd appointment, I do her nails for her vacation, and she goes on her vacation, and I guess either when she got back or before or something, she cancels all of her future appointments. And I was like, I'm not reaching out to her. I don't care. I'm not in that same place, because now I know like not to reach out to people when they cancel their appointments. And I was just like, and I'm just not going to let her book again. If she joins my wait list again, I'm not going to do it, because I had 2 theories on this. Either she went on vacation and when she came back, all of her nails spontaneously fell off, because that's all I could think of was like her service didn't last, for whatever reason it could be, which again, like if you don't reach out to me and tell me what happened, I can't help troubleshoot that for you, because different products and different people, I've said that before. Or she only wanted her nails for that vacation.
Yeah.
And she took the fact that I had an opening to get on my books, because she had 2 appointments where she was kind of being like, I don't really get my nails done. And then she got them for the time that she wanted them, and then she stopped, because I've had so many people who think that that's the best way to get on my books, which actually, if you're honest in your waitlist application and you say, I need them for an event, or I need them for a special occasion, or I really just want to see you twice a year when I do this thing, you'll actually get into my books sooner, because I'll book you for a more specific gap, because I know I won't have to rebook you later.
Yeah.
But if I have to rebook you and I don't have room, I'm not going to take you. So that was like a whole thing. But again, when she texted me, and it felt awful, and like I was doing the wrong things, and like I should have gotten a different job, and I'm so glad I didn't. But anytime you have to deal with difficult people, it feels really hard.
So my last one is ironic, and it's having to go back to school for my esthetician's license. And this very much did feel like the end of the world for me at the time, because I first of all was not planning on moving back to Colorado from Vancouver while I was out there, but I unfortunately got really sick at the end of the year. And I mean, like, I thought I was dying sick, and I got really sick 2 days before my graduation. So my parents were coming to help me move out the day before my graduation anyways. So my parents came out, I got packed, I went to my graduation, and the following day I flew back. And I think it was the day I landed, I went straight to the urgent care, where they diagnosed me with a double ear infection, a double eye infection, and a throat infection. So when I say I was really sick,
wild.
I was very, very much
All the
dying.
infections.
Yeah. So I was back here, and then at that time it was like January of 2020. So in the news was like hints of COVID was happening over in Asia. And my mom was just looking at it and she was like, I think you should stay here for now because we don't know where this is gonna go. Which my mom made the right call, because if you remember, the border was actually closed between Canada and America, so I would not have been able to visit home or vice versa. So I'm very grateful that that decision was made looking back. So I started looking for makeup jobs here since I was deciding to stay here. And as I was doing my research, it had turned out that back the year before in 2019, when I was in school studying makeup, Colorado had decided to change the law that if you were legally going to provide makeup services, you had to have your cosmetology or esthetician's license.
Which I didn't even know that it was that new.
Yep. So here I was. I had just finished a year-long intensive in makeup. I was planning on starting my career, but no, I had to apply to a different school. So I started doing my research, and I found a new school by January 22nd, I think, is when I started at the school I went to. So it didn't take me long. I was motivated to start. And because of that, I also ended up just picking up a job working retail at Ulta. Super ironic now that I work at Sephora. But by doing those two things, that's how I found literally all of my friends has been through getting my esthetician's license and working at Ulta. So everybody I have in my life now, I would not have had if I hadn't had to do that, because they're either through Ulta, through my school, or through my business. Mm-hmm. And while it did very much feel like the end of the world at the time, because I'd already been to school, I didn't want to go to school again, and it wasn't what I wanted to do, lo and behold, I have absolutely fallen in love with lashing and skincare, so it is what I want to do. But it's come full circle now, because 5 years later, I'm back doing makeup at Sephora. You can come visit me. I do makeup applications. That's what they've hired me for. But now everything has kind of fallen into place, because that, again, is not I wouldn't have been able to get that job at Sephora without my esthetician's license anyways. So all been worth it. It's been okay.
It really is kind of like butterfly effect. Yeah. Like everything happens for a reason, even if in that moment you're like, this is stupid. I hope the reason doesn't feel like a good reason for this to happen. But even just like, if I hadn't have had, because I still have friends in North Carolina, I just have like 2, but if I hadn't have had the friendships blow up and the boyfriend break up, then I probably would have stayed, because I would have had so much keeping me there, versus like moving here. And moving here is what led me to cosmetology and my business. And I was originally in school for like a whole different field and things like that. So it really is kind of that butterfly flaps its wings, and even if it's years down the road,
you look back and you see how you wouldn't be where you are without that one thing. And most of the time those things are things that did feel like the end of the world. But I think that's like one of the biggest things that I've really learned to do since 2023 is sitting and reflecting on things that end or things that happen in a way that you didn't anticipate, and like really figuring out what the why was behind that. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things I've gotten really, really good at, to a point of it's probably annoying to some people, because they'll be in there, this is the end of the world stage, and I'm like, well, did you think about XYZ?
Yeah. Yep. So it's good to think about like, how everything has helped us grow. And if you want us to dive deeper into any of these topics, we've said this a million times, so I feel like people don't want us to talk about it.
Probably not.
But if anyone does, we're all about not making you feel alone. So if anything we've mentioned is something that you want us to talk about our experience with, we can totally do a trigger warning, very bold font, obvious title episode on it. We typically brush over a lot of it, because I know for me, I don't want to say anything that's going to make people uncomfortable or, bring up some memories that they don't.
Memories, yeah. Because they are hard topics.
We do try to address this lightly. But yeah, I think we can end it for this episode.
Yeah. So
This is I think one of our better ones we've done in a while.
Yeah,
It's
more organized.
more organized. We're in a better space. And yeah, as usual, all of our links and all the things like that will be in the description.
We'll see you guys again next time.
Bye.